Swimming like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank.
Welcome back to another episode of the Shrimp Tank, coming to you virtually from Seattle and the entire PNW. If you want to learn how to start, grow, or run a successful business, this right here is the podcast for you. The podcast of record. It's where street smarts and book smarts collide. Hello, I'm Dan Whedon, and my co-host today is Michelle Bomberger. Our guest is Brooke Clark of Studio B Portraits. Brooke Clark is founder of Studio B Portraits, which is a luxury photography studio in Seattle. She and her team specialize in creating you on your best day. I kind of need that, I think. But anyway, you on your best day experiences for clients that desire magazine style and celebrity inspired photography for high school senior pictures, family portraits, and personal branding for businesses of all sizes. Brooke started her career shooting for Disney and Ford Models Teen and Youth Division in Los Angeles prior to opening Studio B Portraits in 2006. 17 years. That's a great track record. The studio's work has been featured in Vogue, GQ magazine, and editorial covers, but it's the photography that rarely gets published that is often the most cherished. She and her team are trusted by the biggest brands, discerning clientele, and public people to capture their private life and milestones with family and friends. And now she's on the Shrimp Tank podcast. Welcome, Brooke. We'll be getting to you in just a few minutes. Everybody, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts: iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and YouTube. We are, Michelle, what are we?
Ubiquitous.
We are ubiquitous. We come to you from about a dozen other cities, including the mothership in Atlanta, Boston, Boca Raton, Charleston. So catch us wherever you get your podcasts. Now, before we bring on Brooke, hello, Michelle.
Hey, Dan, it feels like it's been a while.
You know, it has been a while. And in fact, so long ago, it was last year. And not only that, Michelle, after we did our show, I had to do, in fact, that's what I want to talk about. I was a little bit late. My birthday's December 31, and my driver's license renewal was up, and I procrastinated, and I needed to get it done. And I knew I could do it online. I'd never done that. So I went online, and yeah, easy peasy. I did it. I got a printout, and they said, you know, you're going to get it in the mail. And I remember asking Barb, our intrepid producer, and also doubling as my wife, I said, what about the picture? Because you see, the picture was important to me. That was 5 years and about 15 pounds ago. I wanted a new picture. She says, oh, on the online, they just use the same picture. And sure enough, when I got it in the mail, I got the same picture that I'm now going to have to live with another 5 years. And it's like, oh, I was bummed out.
Well, the alternative is that you can go to the DMV and stand in line if there's lines anymore. I don't actually know. But funny that you mentioned that, because I'm actually taking my 16-year-old to get her first driver's license immediately after this show.
Oh.
So her birthday was about a couple weeks ago, and she was ready to have that driver's license in hand on her birthday, the way you see many kids, you know, doing their selfies with their photo right afterwards. But it turns out you have to make an appointment, and there were no appointments on her birthday. So we are a couple weeks late, and she is prepared for her photo. No question about that.
I'm sure she is. She's ready to go.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I am not happy. I guess I'm stuck with the driver's license I have. Maybe I can Photoshop or something into there, but that's probably defaming government property or something. So our guest, I mean, this is a great segue, Michelle. Our guest is Brooke Clark. We are going to be talking photography and all the things you just heard on the introduction. Brooke, first of all, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
I got to believe you're probably, I can see you laughing in the background of my story of my vanity upon vanities. Like anybody even looks at my driver's license anymore, but I do. It's in my wallet and I see it. I got to believe that on your side of the camera and on your side of the business, you've got to deal with an assortment of vanities and confidence levels and concerns about how people are going to look and all of that. Talk to us a little bit about that and your business.
Oh, well, okay. You know what? It's not actually typically about vanities. For real people, I think it is more about what you are lacking confidence in, what you are insecure about. And at least in my estimation, it's not your job to be photogenic. It is my job to make you look good, the very best version of you. That's where the tagline for the business, you on your best day, not the best version of who you were when you were 18, when you were at your, again, whatever our version of what we thought our best self was, it's who you are right now, your very best version. So it's not typically vanities. It is usually more around talking around, and you mentioned it with your picture. Did you put on weight? Was the last time you took a picture 10 years ago? A lot of the things that we are unsure about can be accommodated with good posing, great lighting, and then camera ready styling to help us feel our best.
Well, Michelle, before you ask your question, I just realized the DMV had none of those things 5 years ago. Brooke, you needed to be behind the photos then. I think that was the problem. Michelle, take it away.
Yeah. Well, Brooke, again, I want to echo Dan's thank you for joining us today. I've known Brooke for many years, and she's done our family photos and just finished our senior photos, which is pretty awesome to see. And even for a kid, which I'm sure you get a lot of, a kid who comes in, grumbling about the experience of having to be there. It is magic. It is magic to see that. So it feels to me that you probably have just such a diversity of how people show up and what their needs are. You talked about, this confidence. So, what do you do that's, I suppose, unique to Brooke to bring that forward? Because your images are truly bringing out that person's personality, and even when they walk in the door with maybe less than enthusiasm in being there.
Yeah, there's all different reasons why somebody comes, and the smallest percent is the person who is super excited. Like, there is that person, they do exist, and that is a party, but typically there is a reason why they are there. So if I was just using your son as the example, my guess is he didn't grow up wanting to be a supermodel, right? He was there because he was a senior, which that is exciting for them, but pretty much he loves you. He's doing this for you as his mom. And so the job for me becomes be quick, make it not painful. My very best version of this is I used to, we photograph a lot of high school senior boys. And I used to say I was going to buy the URL. It didn't suck as much as I thought.com, because that's what boys say when they leave. They're like, I didn't suck. And I'm like, awesome. That's great. I'm so glad. Overall, it is understanding why they are there, understanding what they need for this to be a good experience, and then curving or moving to what that is. If I'm using a senior boy, it is very different than, say, a personal branding session for a grown-up. We are doing it when we are grown folks for business. This is how we are going to level up from a LinkedIn perspective. This might be the reason why we are received in a certain manner when we present or use the imaging. Again, two different audiences in these scenarios and two different approaches. And I speak to a senior boy far differently than I might speak to you and I if we were creating images for business.
So, Brooke, I'm always curious with entrepreneurs how you got into this. I'm assuming that there must have been some love of photography at an early age, and you took that passion, moved on. But I know that there's different journeys and pathways to that. Tell us a little bit about how you got started.
Yeah. Okay. So it was what you described. I've been doing this for a very long time, but I was always the kid. I'm dating myself, but I was the kid who always had a camera. But we're talking about film days, right? So I always had a camera. I was always clicking pictures. But after I graduated from university, I took a marketing path. I worked with University of Washington athletics. And so I was working in marketing, working in branding, and then that job took me to LA. I was still doing sports marketing, and then I moved into the corporate universe, still doing marketing. And I was in scenarios where I was seeing celebrities, being at events. Los Angeles serves up a lot of just those fantastic opportunities. And so I was clicking pictures just from a personal standpoint, documenting for myself. After I got pregnant and had my first baby, the company that I worked with went under. And I was home on maternity leave. And I said to my husband, I don't think I want to go back. I took, this is terrible. I took what I thought was an amazing picture of my child, of my baby. And I was like, I think I could do this for a living. And he said, what do you mean do it for a living? And I was like, no, I think I'm going to be a professional photographer. I've never taken a professional picture for anybody, always just for myself. And he was like, so what are you thinking there? I was like, okay, so I'm not going back to corporate America. If I can pay the bills for a month and not be on Monster Board, which was how everybody job searched 20 years ago, maybe I'll do it another month. And 5 years in, he said, okay, well, you've been doing it for 5 years. I guess you need a new goal instead of going month to month. It was very fortunate that my marketing background, when I decided I was going to pursue this, allowed for me to land clients like Disney, like Miller Brewing. I started producing photo shoots before I was even behind a camera. So I was learning the craft, actually getting an education from a technical perspective that I could marry with marketing. And so my client base grew very organically. I was really fortunate that the business background matched up with the artistic. And so I never went back. As soon as I made that commitment, that was, I just had my daughter. And so 17 years later, I went from LA. We moved back here to Seattle, which is where I'm from. And then I've had 3 studios in this market. This one that we're in right now being our third and final since I purchased the building.
So it's a great story, because typically people think of the glamour of LA and, being in that space. And, you sort of said, wait a minute, I can do better than this, which is, I think, super courageous and exciting to hear. And, you mentioned 15 years in business, 17 years kind of doing this. What would you say were pivotal moments in the business, things that really, either launched you to a new level, change the way you think about your business, or maybe something, that may have been perceived as a severe negative that you were able to overcome?
Yeah, I think the very best thing, at least for me, I've always liked anything business, anything entrepreneurial. My mom said when other people were playing Barbies, I was sitting next to a laundry basket with a rotary phone, unplugged, playing business. Like, that has always been kind of my jam. But I have not been scared from the very beginning. Even what I said about doing it a month and then doing it another month, I didn't have like super high bar for myself, right? Like, I had been successful in business. If I wanted to go back and be a marketing executive, I'll go back and be a marketing executive. I really just framed it as, this is what I'm doing right now. So I was passionate about it, which kind of drove where I was headed. It's really interesting. I think on occasion, people always see the final product of what you're doing, but there was a lot of stumbles. I mentioned it was film. I took my book and I went on an open call to Ford Models Los Angeles. And I know if people are not in the industry, that might not resonate, but basically where all the pretty models and people go, I was like, I would like to shoot here. I just walked in on an open call and happened to speak to a person who flipped through my book for, I don't know, less than 30 seconds and said, we'll give you a shot. Like, if you didn't have the confidence to walk in, if you didn't take a shot because they might not like you, then the next steps wouldn't have happened. So there was no such thing as, doing it the way they do it now, but it was, you physically have to walk in, you need to connect, you need to take your shot. And if they don't want you, you're going to take another shot someplace else. So I've always set a very low bar, gotten over it, and then set my next one.
Well, first of all, I love that you went month to month for 5 years, but your husband said, well, that's a lot. That's pretty cool. I love that. Well, speaking of setting bars, we have a bar to set, and that's taking a commercial break. And we're going to take that short break to hear from today's Spotlight sponsor. And when we come back with our guest, Brooke Clark, for our Hot or Not section of the show, we're going to kind of go back in time a little bit to the good old days. She'll find out, so will you. Don't walk away. We'll be right back with more of the Shrimp Tank.
Your business is a valuable achievement, your livelihood, and your legacy. Every day you are asked to balance business opportunities and legal risks, but engaging legal adds complexity and expense. You deserve to experience business law the way it should be: practical, responsive, approachable, and transparent legal solutions to support your business in every stage. With Equinox Business Law Group's General Counsel Services, you get a corporate legal department tailored to your business needs. Let us tackle those contracts, HR, partnership, and IP issues so you can get back to your most important work, seamlessly moving your business forward. To learn more about Equinox fixed cost, all-inclusive legal services, visit our website at equinox.law or email contact@equinoxbusinesslaw.com. Equinox Business Law Group. Business law the way it should be.
Welcome back to the Shrimp Tank, where we interview the best and brightest CEOs and business thought leaders in the greater Puget Sound and the Pacific Northwest. I'm Michelle Bomberger here with Dan Whedon, and our guest today is Brooke Clark, owner of Studio B Portraits. Now we're going to move on to our next segment, Hot or Not.
So, Brooke, this is where Michelle and I are going to pepper you with questions about business, about life, maybe even, I don't know, photography. And we're going to find out if you think what we're talking about is hot or not, and why or why not. And at the end, you win absolutely nothing. But let's hope you have some fun with it anyway. So I'm going to date myself. It was 1977. And I was in 7th grade at North Woodby Junior High, and I took a photography class. And so that's when I remember getting my first real camera, and it was a black and white. And you know, what's funny is I think I still have a lot of those pictures, and they look great. And I've always wondered, hot or not, black and white photography.
Oh, I mean, yes.
Now, what she's doing for those of you listening who aren't seeing it, she's pointing some black and white photography behind her. So I kind of thought I knew the answer. Talk a little bit about that, though.
Trends come and go in everything, fashion, film, and specifically photography. I have always been drawn to black and white. Personally, in our Studio B Portraits look and lifestyle, we always shoot to color, harmonizing color, making sure toning is a priority. But in my personal, when you come into my home, I do almost everything in black and white or sepia tones. They, from a design perspective, they melt seamlessly, but also from a design perspective, you can mix and match different eras and different times. And since I collect photography from different shoots, different relationships in our family, it all blends and designs so beautifully onto the wall.
All right, so I got engaged many years ago, and my younger friends who I see online have these beautiful pictures of, the actual proposal. There was no one taking photos at our proposal.
Yeah.
So is it hot to just drag your friend along to take photos behind the bush while you're proposing?
That is so funny. My lead photographer who works with us actually did hop out of the bushes um, for her cousin. It is now a running joke. I like you. My engagement was with my husband and nobody else. You only have whatever you can remember. I've heard lots of different versions of capturing the engagement. Even the let's do it again, that didn't look as strong on film, right? It is a big deal, in the way that people document their lives is so different. I would say for myself, I've been with my husband for 20 years, but I still would not want somebody in the bushes next to me who knew I was getting engaged before I did. But my daughter is the absolute opposite. She's like, you're going to be in the bushes, mom, right? He's going to tell you. So that generation, they want it, and we are there for it.
Love it.
So you have to almost be sleuth-like. I mean, you've not only that, you've got to be stealth, and so that's interesting. Hot or not? We're talking vanities before. Hot or not? Selfies.
Oh, I'm gonna say hot because, again, everybody does them at some point. I will say, speaking again for myself, I don't want to take a selfie, and here's why. The thing that is closest to the camera is always the biggest. And so in a selfie, your nose is closest to the camera. And so the odds of you getting a great shot, if you're only at an arm's length there, even if you're holding something to do it, it is not my preference for selfies. But again, if it's that or not capture the moment, all in, capture the moment.
So do you have any, for anybody listening or watching, a couple of quick pointers? If you're going to take a selfie, this is what you should or should not do.
Oh, for sure. So the very first thing is, I'm going to call a selfie anything that isn't done professionally. We're just going to say anything phone capture. And I actually tell people this all the time when we're doing it. I'm like, when the group of people walks by you, grab the teenage equivalent of who's ever in the group that's passing and hand them the phone. They inherently know to take multiple frames, change their angle up and down. It's funny because if you hand it to my husband takes the thing and he goes, click, here you go. And my daughter will say, okay, guys, change up a little bit. And she will prompt them. Obviously, she grew up with me as a mom, but multiple takes, and then high-low angles, and ask a young person to capture it for you. Don't ask a grown-up.
Well, I will add to that something else I know that you do. So I think I know your answer to this, but mentoring and training youngsters.
Oh, yeah.
Hot or not?
Oh, so hot. I mean, I have a passion for mentoring in the most general sense. I was so fortunate coming up when I went to university. I had the most amazing woman who mentored me. She took me all the way through my 4 years and then helped me into my first career. Even the way that I do business now is a reflection of what Cindy Holt at the University of Washington taught me. Everything about mentoring speaks to my spirit and my heart. Our team here that we work with now, it is our team. My longest term has worked with us for 13 years. Even my newest one is 5 years. And we started as young people, and part of what we did together is just kick the door open to allow other people to learn and grow in this career. Specifically, we work with a high school model team, brand influencers, which I know is a big buzzy thing in the universe now, but we've been doing it for 10 years. High school juniors come in, learn how to be in front of the camera, learn how to speak to small business, learn how to represent our business. And it's been a huge passion for me personally, but now it's grown into an even bigger element of our business.
Brooke, I'm looking at some beautiful photos. I'm assuming that's your family right behind you. But it lends me to this question. I got to believe that there is an art and a science to photography. The science part certainly being the technical skills and some of the things around that, but the art part is finding that moment. Because there's one thing to sit, and I remember the old days of my own senior photos. I mean, it's like, okay, sit still, don't move. There's an art form to finding that unique moment where the smile is just right, the facial, everything's just right, even if it's set up to be studio. But talk about how you develop that. What is your secret to finding that right moment?
Gosh, there's so many answers. I bet I could ask Michelle and she would have different feedback, but I would say for the photographer side versus the client side, I'm going to go back to my low bar. First, I'm not in a rush. Plenty of time to connect. There's a lot more banter that happens in advance of any kind of clicking. The technicals, the lighting, the posing, that all better be in my tool belt before we begin. The only thing that I'm really thinking about when I am shooting is connecting with the person. The conversation for me is everything. Conversation with the mom, conversation with the subject. I want to hear about the person's business if I'm doing personal branding. I don't think people realize that my biggest joy isn't clicking a picture anymore. It is the connection with the person. It is by far the thing I enjoy the most. And I mean, my husband, he says it all the time. I'm never retiring. I work a lot, but I love this. And that is how you get the person who you met for an hour and the mom says, oh my God, that's my kid. That smile, that's my kid, because we weren't trying to make a picture. We were trying to make a moment.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would absolutely reflect that is what you see when you are, with Brooke, is that connection. That connection is amazing. You told the story of, where you started digital, traditional film, digital film. How was that transition?
I never photographed professionally using film. So the tenets of learning to shoot film, again, as just an enthusiast, probably maybe more inclined to want to learn digital, but as a professional, I only used digital. So Photoshop, the way that kids learn now is the same way I learned. The thing that I wish I had known in advance is how much access there was to teaching yourself. I literally just sat there and read the manual. Now there is no read the manual. There's so many different versions of learning. And even for somebody like me who's done it for 17 years, there is not a week that goes by that I don't buy a class, do some kind of webinar. I'm always in pursuit of some kind of learning, not even just from photography, but from the business side. I'm obsessed. There's always something new that makes me excited about where I'm going and what I'm doing.
So is there a place that you would recommend for someone looking to improve their photography skills, or they're both on the front end and on the back end of the process? Do you have any recommendations?
Yeah, well, and very first is just any version of specialty. It's so neat now. Again, they didn't have this when I started, but it most assuredly exists now. There is so many versions of YouTube, of teaching yourself. I mean, I think all the younger people are used to that. But when you are talking about niching, you can't, if you are a wedding photographer, if you want to be a newborn photographer, if you want to be a senior photographer, there is all types of online platforms where you can do a membership, and we're talking, again, easy access, where you can learn lighting, you can learn posing, all of those things are available. But even if you wanted to go not digital, we have people reach out to us consistently asking about interning, shadowing. We do job shadows with high school students each year. There is so much opportunity, and a lot of people don't ask. So you think you're going to be up against a bunch of people, but the one kid or the one person who takes the opportunity to come and ask you the question gets all the information. So you can buy it, you can educate against it, or you can just go old school networking.
Well, we're going to do some old school commercial right now. I can't believe we were already to our second break, but we are. We're going to take that short break to hear from our sponsors. And when we come back with our guest, Brooke Clark, for our famous Plead the Fifth section of the show, we are going to find out what the weirdest, strangest, most unique, fun, crazy photo shoot she's ever done. She gets to think about that over the break. Don't walk away. We'll be right back with more of the Shrimp Tank.
Plead the Fifth is brought to you by our corporate sponsors: Ideal Life 360, Cornerstone Financial, First Underwriters Insurance, the Kitsap Sun newspaper, BC Fitness Studio, and Upstart Group. Please visit our website at www.shrimptankpodcast.com/Seattle to learn more about these terrific companies. Now, back to the show.
Welcome back to the Shrimp Tank, where we interview the best and brightest CEOs and business thought leaders in the Puget Sound area and beyond. I'm co-host Michelle Bomberger here with Dan Whedon, and our guest today is Brooke Clark of Studio B Portraits. Now we're going to kick off our next segment, Plead the Fifth.
Plead the Fifth. We're gonna turn up the heat just a little bit, and you could try to use an attorney here because we have one handy, but I think she might ask the harder question. You never know. I've given you a heads up on this, Brooke. Plead the Fifth. You've got to have in 17 years something that is still so crazy, so weird, so off the wall, so unique. What is the weirdest photo shoot you've ever done?
Oh, I mean, you're not wrong. I've done a lot. I said yes to a lot of stuff, in my career. I think some of it is the things where I just misunderstood that are sometimes the funniest. So I had a magazine ask me if I wanted to take pictures of baby tigers. And so I was like, yeah, I do. In my brain, I pictured myself frolicking with little baby tigers. Not a great reference, but kind of like Siegfried and Roy before there was an accident.
Right.
So I thought I was going to be white tigers and me. I thought it was going to be great. And then I showed up and it was behind bars through plexi. And so I had told everybody how I was going to be frolicking with the tigers. And no, I was long lens, doing it the way other people do it, but you had to get a better shot. So that one was a little embarrassing for me after the fact. I also had one where I was in Malibu on a beach, and I had taken the client and scaled them all the way down the side of the mountain to these like epic, where you do these fashion shoots, and they had these huge rocks, and it was supposed to be amazing. But I didn't realize, because I was so early in my career, that you need to have a permit. And so the police came, and I had just gotten the entire family down on the beach, and they ejected us off the beach. And I was pregnant with my second child. So it had taken a lot to get down the mountain, only to get there, not even get to click anything, and have to be taken out.
That's great. It's like shoes, right? These sacrifices we make for our industry and sacrifices we make for fashion, right? So that's fantastic. Can you share, who have been the most inspirational people that you have seen in your entrepreneurial journey?
I have been so fortunate. I made mention of my mentor when I was in college, and she helped me into my marketing career. But I've also been so blessed that as I have come along in my career here, and Michelle, I'm actually just going to call you out. I've said this to you personally, but there's a lot of things that I learned that I wasn't going to do myself. I really like photography. I really like business, and I really like people. But there is a whole 20% of things that need to happen when you're running a business that just were never going to be for me. So the thing that was really awesome is when you took over doing our legal, our technicals, to make sure that everything was on the straight and narrow. It freed me up. I didn't even know that existed. There was a lot of in your brain when you start of DIY. A lot of times you want to bootstrap things. And the part that I learned as I moved through was there are people to help you. And when I have met clients here doing their personal branding and their imaging that just in their own time walked me through the journey of growing my business, going from being a new mom with a baby on my chest, photoshopping from a laptop, to a business 17 years later where you have staff and team and you photograph celebrity and high profile people. I'm not sure I would have known I could do that without the hand holding of mentors from a business perspective, not even from photography, to kind of walk me through those steps in that journey.
So Brooke, you're talking about the entrepreneurial journey, which it probably is a good transition to my question. Entrepreneurs, I think, we're famous for being our own worst critics, right? And I think all of us, to an extent, have that. Would you be willing to share something? Plead the fifth. Share with us something that you've struggled with in just whether it's self-confidence or technical or whatever, something that you've struggled with in your journey and how you deal with it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I'm actually that different. When I speak to other entrepreneurs and different business people, all of a sudden you feel how like-minded you are. And I don't want to act like I've solved on it because I haven't. I'm getting better. There is a sense that you feel like you're the only one that can do the thing. And so you find yourself doing the thing that isn't actually your very best use of your time anymore. And when you begin and you're resource strapped and you are going to do it yourself. And then there's just kind of a mindset where you stay there and you realize we can't grow if I don't start doing the thing that I'm awesome at and let go the things that I am spending time on, not because they're fun, but maybe just from a fear. You think you're the only one that can do it or follow through. Trusting my team and letting them grow is the only way that we can all do better. And so that has been a big challenge for me entrepreneurially, to stop doing everything myself.
There's a question that Dan often asks folks, and I'm going to twist it a little bit for this program, because you talk to so many people, right? Yeah. So this inherent necessity for your business to be able to talk to people. So if you were seated next to somebody for the first time at dinner, how would you start that conversation?
Probably the same way I do everything. I'm visual. So one of the things that has always been awesome about the work that I do is I can find something I like visually about anybody. So my kids make fun of me that I will just compliment whatever it is I visually saw. They think it's sometimes inappropriate, right? I love your earrings. Oh my gosh, your belt. I start almost every conversation noting something about somebody visually because it's what I do every day. I can't pose a person or light a person without taking them in physically. And so my conversation point usually starts with something visual. And if it's awkward, I usually note that it's awkward. I know we just met, but I just want to tell you how much I really love and then we start speaking. I'm not a shy person, but I definitely do better one-on-one. So I don't struggle at a dinner party. I don't want to stand up in front of anybody's stage. But the one-on-one conversation, I love it.
Well, I'm gonna see what else you might love. We're gonna ask you a question that we've been asking all of our guests. We're probably gonna compile all the answers. I'm gonna ask you to start a new business, Brooke. Not photography. You got to start a new business, and the new business, and it can be more than month to month. So, and the new business must be based on a hobby. What's the hobby that you would start a new business with?
Okay, I already got this, because when things get tough, sometimes I start this business in my brain anyway.
Perfect.
Yeah. I'm opening a pretzel shop.
Oh, a pretzel shop. Nice.
I know that that's so weird, but I don't know if other people do this in their business, but sometimes when you get overwhelmed and you're like, man, this is really hard. So if I was just going to do like a 180 pivot, I'm spending my day eating and making pretzels.
Like the
I
big,
think I'd be
like
really
the
good at
big
it.
pretzels, not the little tiny ones that crunch. You're talking the big, fluffy, doughy pretzels.
I'm Wetzel pretzel. Here's the thing. I wouldn't actually ever buy a franchise because I already know I'm too independent for that. But man, on the days that are really hard, I have made a pretzel business in my head on too many occasions.
I think that's hysterical because I was at a bakery the other day watching in the back the not quite an assembly line, but the bakers there rolling out the croissants. I'm like, I could do that.
It's funny. You have to pick something that is so antithetical to anything you do in your life. By the way, I'm a terrible cook, terrible. So why I like that particular thing, but I stand in the line at the mall and I'm not alone. There's a lot of people online trying to get themselves some bready goodness.
It's funny. I think it's funny that it's that versus like, Cinnabon.
Right?
All right. Another plead the fifth for you. Share something that people generally don't know about you.
Well, I just told you before, and people would never guess it. While I am a one-on-one person, I am not a group person. So I don't socialize in that way. I think because I am outgoing and because I'm a connector by nature, I think most people wouldn't know that I'm not what I think people would call a people person or a group person. And I don't mean just standing on a stage, but I don't have any interest in wowing a ton of people. I do my very best when I am connecting one-on-one, which was a really interesting thing as social media became such a big deal and people putting their life out for other people. I never named my business Brooke Clark Photography because it was never about Brooke Clark. Everything about what our business is in service to our client. It speaks to my heart because that's how I like to work. But overall, I don't think I'm a very social person by most people's standards.
So as we wrap up, I first wanted to say thanks to Brooke for being a guest here on the Shrimp Tank. For our listeners who want to get in touch with you or learn more about Studio B, how can they get more information?
Yeah, we are at Studio B Portraits everywhere. So it's .com if it's on website or Facebook, Insta, all those good things. We're everywhere, just at Studio B Portraits.
Great. And so for our listeners, make sure you check out all the replays at shrimptankpodcast.com/Seattle and wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Google, Stitcher, SoundCloud. And please follow us on our show's social media pages on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram.
Brooke, it's been a delight to have you on the show. Thank you so much for sharing with us your business, your family, your life, your pictures. Really enjoyed it. Thank you. Michelle, it'll be earlier than next year before I know we see you again. It'll be a few weeks. Thanks again, as always. Everybody, our next show will be next Wednesday. We do this every Wednesday at noon. It'll be Wednesday, February 2nd. Our guest will be Linda Binns with Linda Binns Consulting. Our co-host that day will be Linda Popke. I'm not going to change my name to Linda just for all of that, but please join Linda and I with Linda. In the meantime, please be safe, be well, and be prosperous, because until next week, the shrimp is back in the tank. So long.
I've been feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank.